Welcome to the latest episode of the Restaurant Technology Guys podcast. In today's episode, we are diving into the world of automated marketing with a founder who, this is his second or third venture. He grew up in the back of his family's restaurant. He's built a automated marketing tool called Scale Social AI. Wouldn't be a podcast in 2026 if we didn't have the word AI in it early on, but I would encourage all of you guys to discover how this restaurant brat who literally grew up in the back of his parents' restaurant learned the ways to continue to get people's attention and drive authentic marketing and leads into your business with his new tool called Scale Social. Ever since I had this recording, I have not been able to stop thinking about the different things that he's done. If you don't know me, my name is Julian. I am the Chief Revenue Officer of CBS Northstar. We sell the Northstar point of sale solution for multi-units. Please check us out at cbsnorthstar.com. And now, on to the episode. Welcome back to the Restaurant Technology Guys podcast. I thank everyone out there for joining us. As I like to say each and every time, I know you guys got lots of choices, so thanks for hanging out with us today. Today, I am joined by a founder, and I'm excited because he and I continue to go back and forth and between my travels and his travels. But I think he's got some really, really cool software that I think is going to make a huge difference in our space. So, Runbin, why don't you introduce yourself real quick to our audience? Who are you? Where did you come from? Kind of a little bit of your background, and then we can kind of talk about what you and the team are building.
Yeah, you bet, Jeremy. Thank you so much for having me on the show. So my name is Runbin. I'm the founder and CEO of Scale Social AI. We've built a technology to help small business owners, restaurateurs, to turn everyday customer moments, these are real authentic moments inside the store, into automated marketing campaigns. So they feel real, they bring in foot traffic. My personal background, I grew up in China and then came over to the States at a very young age. My parents were first generation immigrants, so they operated tons of Chinese restaurants, buffets, dine-ins, carry-outs. So I was a restaurant brat. So think about like a Chinese kid doing homework in a corner in a Chinese restaurant somewhere. That was me.
I love it. I love it. We've got a customer on the Wahoo's Fish Tacos out in Southern California, and they're the same way. They emigrated from China to Brazil, and then Brazil to the States, and started. They were the same kids that were in the back of the Chinese restaurant. The parents had a Chinese restaurant in Newport Beach, and then as part of their retirement, they sold the restaurant and gave them the funds that started Wahoo's. And so it's kind of a cool story. And then Wahoo's is now a chain that's very beloved on the West Coast. We made it about 12 seconds into the recording before we talked about the word AI. So let's talk a little bit of what is automated marketing and why does it even matter, I guess? Tell me a little bit more about why you thought, let's apply what I know to be, technology that can help to restaurants. Why did you choose restaurants? Sounds like you kind of grew up in it, but what is it even that you're kind of trying to solve, I guess, not in English, but in layman's terms? Talk to the restaurant owners out there and say, okay, let's talk about what we're trying to solve for that maybe they can't do with humans today, but you can do with automated marketing because the technology has gotten there.
That was a great question. It's a personal thing. So Scale Social was born by accident. I spent my career in big tech and done AI stuff in healthcare as well. But my parents decided to retire. So that story actually resonates very closely. They're like, they've spent their entire lives building restaurants. And so eventually one day they're like, okay, we're good. So they sold their stakes and they decided to retire. But my mom wasn't doing well in retirement. I think for my parents' generation, after they've just been so busy all of their lives, you ask them to stop, like things break. And so we decided to start a handmade Chinese dumpling business, my mom and I. And I had a full-time job at that point in time in corporate. And so it's like, okay, let's do this on the side. Before we know it, that business blew up. We had over 1,000 customers locally here in RTP. And I hand-delivered dumplings every single
Wow.
day. Yeah, so think about like a Toyota RAV4 van. Initially, it was one van, two coolers, then that became two vans, and we would just drive anywhere between 150 to 200 miles across RTP. We eventually sold the business after my son was born, and my mom's like, I want to be a grandma now. So that was great. But after we sold the business, there was one particular problem that just kept coming back, and was like, why is it so difficult doing marketing authentically and at scale as a small business owner?
Mm-hmm.
And we were definitely not alone, right? I had met a lot of other business owners on our journey, and it seems as though you can never have it right. It's like you
I
try
agree.
agencies, they're so expensive. You hire someone full time, part time to do social media, but it's never really enough. The best thing that worked for us was actually food influencers, but they're like fireworks, right? So there's the spark, there's the initial traction, and then after a week, it kind of just dies down. So it doesn't have that persistent value. And so initially, this is a long story, so I'll try to like compress.
Oh, you're great. I love it because I want to dig into kind of how do you get to this place? And so keep going down this journey because where we're going to turn this conversation is what does it look like prior to Scale Social? And then we can talk about kind of how Scale Social takes that on. But keep going with the story because I love founder stories. And the fact that you grew up in the back of a Chinese restaurant is even better.
Yeah, I think having that operator sort of mindset and experience makes a huge difference because this is way less about technology. And so we started with that problem. And our initial idea after we sold the dumpling business was okay, let's take some of that money and build a solution. And we had this idea of like an AI CMO for restaurateurs kind of concept. It was kind of novel maybe a couple of years back, but now it's everywhere, right? We built something, we launched it, we were able to pilot it with several of our clients, but we very quickly realized that we were just not doing it right. And the reason, as we learned, is because most businesses build their traction and their brand on authenticity.
Hmm.
Nobody wants like an AI generated piece of content, right? And so very quickly, within 3 months, we took that solution and we basically dumped it. The insight that came to how we eventually built Scale Social is my best creative assets actually came from real customers. So during the dumpling days, my customers would send me photos and videos of their dumpling making experience. It's like, oh my gosh, my pot sticker stuck to the pan. What did I do wrong? Or how do you steam your dumplings? Or how do you cook it, right? And those were text exchanges. They were very personal relationships. But the assets we ended up utilizing in marketing campaigns, they were a hit. So we said to ourselves, well, if that worked, can we do this more at scale? Can we actually turn your best advocates, who are actually your customers, to give us authentic content? And then we actually make use of that with their permission. And that was
That's
our
amazing.
initial thesis.
Yeah, no, and I think it's so true. And I think it's the funny part is I think about what you guys are building and where your team is at. It's like it's such at the precipice of this place where there's so much spam out there where more and more people are going to be able to see through it and they want that authenticity. Part of what I love about this avenue is I can't fake this. Like I can't fake the questions I'm asking you. I can't fake I can't turn myself into AI to ask you questions about what it is that you guys are doing. And so the fact that you guys are using real life examples, is there a way to have done this? I guess let me take a step back and say, prior to Scale Social, how would you do it? Would it just be like, you guys, hey, send me pictures of you cooking the dumplings, and now somebody's manually filtering through? I'd love to kind of talk through what does that look like, or even the flip side of that is what do people do today that might mimic what it is that you guys are trying to build at scale and at automation?
I think that was exactly it, though. When we were doing the dumpling business, I would go through all of these photos and videos that came in, right? And I remember, like, I would pull them because these are iMessages. I would pull
Mm-hmm.
them off my phone and put it into a folder. And then every weekend, I'm like, okay, well, let me look through some of these things. What works, what doesn't work. And you make a cognitive decision on what you ended up posting. And then you post it. And then I will have to think about, okay, do I run an ad campaign based on this creative? Do I use CapCut to make videos, right? And so to your point, it is absolutely possible today to do all of those things manually. But guess what? It took a lot of time.
It takes a lot of effort, and it's really hard to do it at scale. And so, talk to me a little bit about you've talked about why you guys have built it. I love the idea to get that authentic, but what makes your solution, I guess, different than having somebody sitting and filtering through these text messages or these online reviews? I was just on the phone with somebody earlier that kind of does review management and make sure that those things are going on. And so, at the end of the day, you guys are culling together this information, but what makes it AI and how does it change to be able to do that to where it's not somebody sitting there for 4 hours on a Sunday afternoon trying to figure out their campaigns for next week, both from the outbound side and then the data on the backside. I'd love to kind of talk through both sides of that.
Yeah, I think the data is really the crux of it. When consumers, so the way it works is we put QR codes out there. for every location. And then diners come in, they see the QR code, they scan it, and then they would be prompted to give us content. Now, what's in it for them, right? Usually they can get a free ice cream, a free drink, whatever the operator decides to provide as a perk for that piece of content. Now, how do you know if it's a great piece of content? We use AI filters and we build it on a per brand basis, right? So we are able to curate content at the point of capture. So that's the first piece. So great, not so great, and that determines whether you get the reward or not. So it's
Okay.
instantaneous, right? There's no waiting. There's no, hey, come back for the next visit. You get
So
it.
me taking a picture of my shoe and uploading it saying I've got a piece of content, you're going to be like, oh, we're going to throw
Yeah,
this
we're gonna
out.
reject it.
But I have a cheese pull on the cheese stick like, Chili's did, and it's an authentic, it's my kid that's eating a Pizookie at BJ's and they're eating the ice cream's coming down their face, that the AI is going to look at and say that's authentic and that's something that's crave worthy. Is that kind of what you guys are doing?
That's exactly it. And because we run campaigns and we know what performs over time, we then know what assets are better. So then the prompting on the front end at the point of capture, those can be dynamically generated. So
Okay.
guiding visually for the diners what to capture.
So you're guiding through that QR code. You're saying, hey, we just did this LTO of these hand pulled noodles. Give me a picture of your hand pulled noodle soup that's going on. And you're prompting them to say, I see that you ordered hand pulled. Are you tying it into the transactional data to say you know that they ordered that? Or are you guys just kind of generic currently? I'd love to just kind of understand that.
Generic for now, though
Okay.
we are in conversations with a few providers to figure out how we can tie it into, for example, the POS data.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. Hey, they got the ice cream. They just got the root beer float, or they just got the Shamrock Shake around St. Patty's Day. We need them to take pictures of that so that we can scale that. Okay, so that's kind of how you guys are capturing it. Talk to me a little bit about training the model, because that's the other problem a lot of times with AI is knowing what works. You said the data is great. How do you guys know that it's going to work, or how do you guys know that it is a good picture? I'd love to get into that, and maybe that's the secret sauce that you can't share all of the details, but I'd love to understand a little bit more about, because marketing is science and it's art. And you can't always, put data around art. You can put around the science, and I'd love to kind of talk a little bit about how you guys are managing both sides of that.
Yeah, so that's the process that where we have a pattern around, right? And so it's the end-to-end loop: capture, video generation, ad placement, and then the feedback back to what gets captured, right? And so when a piece of content comes into our server, it actually generates a ton of metadata. Are the people in the shots? Are they happy? Are they not? What products are being featured? What's the typical ambience of the location? And so that metadata, as of today, we don't make a ton of use for it, but brand office, the chief marketing officers of several brands have voiced interest in utilizing that data to really get a sense of how their diners and consumers are engaging with brands on a per location basis.
That makes sense.
It's very meaningful to have that sort of visibility. The other thing that we've come to learn is for franchise brands, especially franchise and multi-location brands,
Hmm.
there's typically a gap between national campaigns and what the corporate teams are doing versus what the franchisees are doing, right? And as you know, franchisees are contributing dollars into a marketing fund. And typically what happens is you run a TV ad. Well, if you're a franchisee at a local level, you got to be asking about attribution. What did that TV ad did for me at my location? And there's a gap. And so we learn, and this is pure coincidence, we learned that our solution helps bridge that gap.
Love that. Love that thought, because funny enough, I just did some edit on a episode that'll be coming out right before yours about something where they did have success, but not everywhere. And so they struggled. They did this huge campaign, and it was in certain stores they killed it, in other stores they didn't. And so trying to figure out at the data level where that attribution is at. Let me take a step back on kind of the thesis behind this circumstance. Where does it work? Is it only in those crave-worthy, like exciting type brands? Does it work everywhere? Can I go into a family dining concept? We're late 2025. Just a couple of months ago, Cracker Barrel got blasted for their whole, deal. And does it work at a brand that's a legacy brand? Does it work at a Denny's? And those kind of things. I mean, Chili's obviously has done a great job of figuring out how to get craveability and how to get user content, which really, I think it was an influencer. I was reading an article just the other day. It was an influencer that did the cheese pull on their cheese stick things that blasted them into prominence, and then they came up with the three for me, and that really helped. Whereas some of these other brands, so I'd love to kind of talk about, where does it fit? Is it only fit in those kind of hipster type brands, or is it kind of, can you figure out how to make it work just about everywhere?
I don't think it works everywhere, transparently. Where we've seen a lot of success, though, is QSR brands. So because the experience is very snack worthy, it's sort of bite sized, and they tend to also perform much better on TikTok, right?
Okay.
Full service concepts are good, but not fine dining. We've experimented some with fine dining. The clientele tend to be very private, and so they're not necessarily in a position to want to share.
Yeah. Well, they also um it's bad. I mean, it's not bad, but it's one of those things that's somewhat frowned upon to pull out your phone and get a flash and all of that in a fine dining restaurant. Funny enough, last year I was with my wife on her birthday for the weekend, and we were somewhere and somebody had a tripod. We were in a fine dining restaurant. They had a tripod. It was a food influencer. I'm like, this is the most ridiculous thing. I'm paying $50 for a steak, and I've got somebody with a tripod and their camera taking a picture of their meal. I'm like, get out of here. Today's episode is brought to you by Restaurant Technologies Incorporated. They are the leaders in automated cooking oil management. And if you're not familiar with them, they've been on the show a few times to share some of the unique and cool things that they've been doing in the oil management space. They have an end-to-end closed-loop automated system that helps deliver, monitor, filter, collect, and recycle your cooking oil. Sounds like a lot. It's because they do a ton to help clean up one of the dirtiest jobs and most dangerous jobs in your kitchen. You can check them out by visiting rti-inc.com or by calling 888-779-5314. They've already helped over 45,000 customers in the United States with their cooking oil, so clearly they're doing something right. Now back to the episode. So to your point, I think in fine dining they'll struggle there. And so let me take another stab at it then real quick about the user experience. So now I'm a user doing this user generated content. How do you, I guess, not just encourage, we've already talked about kind of the encouragement for them, but how do you get them to not have the picture that's at a 30-degree angle, all cockeyed, and all these bad things that you guys now have to either clean up if you're going to use it, or make it something that's relevant, because not everybody is a social media influencer. You pay these influencers in the past because they know what they're doing. They know how to take a picture of the food. They know how to hype it up. They know how to have their facial expressions the way that they are. Love to kind of understand, how do you train and educate the user on this type of experience to get the content, because the better the pictures, the more lighting it is, the better the group is, the better off it's going to perform, I would guess.
Yeah, so there are two levels. One is the prompting aspect of it. So it's dynamically generated. However, even with prompting, that doesn't guarantee perfect shots, right? And so when the content comes in, there's the AI evaluation. And so we evaluate the content, and if there are any improvements that need to be made, we actually prompt the user at that point in time before they eventually submit the content. And so in about half of the cases, customers, when they see that, they're like, oh, sure, I'll take another shot, I'll add it. We don't get rid of the original content. It still goes into another queue just in case it could be used. But that's how we over time sort of improve the assets at the point of capture. The other thing is there's a gamified level, right? And so gamification is very important. The better quality of the content, the more attractive the reward. And what's crazy about this is I recently just came back from China, and there's a scale social concept in China that's literally everywhere right now, because UGC-led marketing is discovery, right? And so what they were able to do is they tie like referral incentives directly into the UGC content. I think that's a great direction for us to go towards. We're not there yet.
I love that concept. Now let's flip it to the restaurant brand side. I think I get what they get as far as a benefit, but you talked about the data aspects. Let's talk about the data aspects as far as being able to communicate and take that data and now drive customer behavior. Because again, you're capturing this cheese pull, you're capturing this noodle eating experience. Now, what do they do with that data? You alluded to TikTok. Is it now taking that and repurposing it? Because sometimes that even is an art of knowing how to post, of knowing when to post, of knowing how to tag. And again, you live in this world, so I'd love for you to talk some of our listeners through a little bit of, I'm now a restaurant on this tool. How do I make it so that I don't have to sit and do almost the same amount of time as you were doing manually from your iMessage, but do it in a way that you can get it, get it to get in front of the right eyeballs so that you can drive the behavior?
That's spot on. And so when the content comes in, we generally collect anywhere between 100 to 200 pieces of content per location per month. Imagine
Wow.
it just streams into the server, right? And because we score all of the assets, we prioritize videos over still photos, right? We prioritize people over products. So bare minimum. And so there's better content and there's not so great content. Then what happens is every month we generate a number of reels automatically based on
Okay.
what we deem to be the highest content. And so we're taking that load entirely off of social media teams and owners. So what happens is once the reels, the videos are generated, they get sent to the decision makers. So if you're a marketing director for multiple locations, you get that email or get that through WhatsApp, right? And all you have to do is to look at it. Is it on brand? Is it great looking? And can I approve it?
Okay.
That's it. So if it's approved, then that video becomes an ad campaign automatically. And
Okay.
that gets distributed over Meta, Google, TikTok, and other channels of preference. Now, the magic though, and you mentioned data, is once that campaign goes out live, we get so much contextual data back from the marketing campaigns. There are so many variations of the video campaigns that go out live, and we will know very quickly which version of that performed better. And that optimization loop kicks in.
And so with that, I know when you do ad campaigns, you have to pick demo. You have to pick demographics, you have to pick age groups, you have to pick geographic locations. Help me understand how you guys triangulate that. Because if I'm in Raleigh and you don't want to serve up a fast food restaurant that's 20 miles away from somebody, because they're not going to drive 20 miles for that. And so it's got to be hyper localized. It's got to be something that's relevant to the age demographic. My 9-year-old on TikTok or on YouTube or Meta or whatever, she doesn't have the decision making capabilities to be able to drive to go do these things. Whereas, me in my late 40s, different demographics, I'd love to help, I guess, tie those two things together because there's human in the loop. You're building the ad campaign, but then you now need to execute that ad campaign against your ICP, your ideal customer profile in the demographic and geographic areas that you're looking for. So I'd love for you to talk through how do you not waste ad money by sending this ad for something you're only going to make $3 on, and you're sending it out to somebody 20 miles away that's going to see it, and maybe they'll come by, maybe they won't, but likely they're not going to change their behavior to drive 20 miles to get a $5 cheeseburger or whatever.
That's spot on. So generally speaking, we target within a 5-mile radius of every
Okay.
location. There are some exceptions here and there. For example, there's a brand that we work with, they're in a food court, right? So it's going to be even more hyper localized, like literally within that mall location. But all that context and all the data is handled before that brand is onboarded. So during
Okay.
onboarding, we collect a bunch of parameters as to what makes a great ICP for that brand. And not just on a brand level, but also on a per location level, because we recognize every location is different. Just because you run a Jimmy John's, that doesn't mean it's all the same, right?
Yeah, you might be in a high density and you need a lot of delivery, whereas you're in the suburbs and it's a different conversation. So sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but people don't think about this because one size doesn't fit all in marketing. And I have some other questions, but I'll let you keep going down that thread.
That's exactly right. So you get a fuzzier level of your ICP on the corporate brand level. And then when you start interviewing the owners, the franchisees, right at the location, they'll tell you, hey, by the way, 80% of my revenue comes from deliveries.
Yeah.
Right? And I want to double down on that. Or it could be the opposite. 80% of my revenue comes from deliveries, but I would love to grow walk-ins, right? And so that objective fundamentally influences what we do on the local marketing level.
Do you also look at the secondary demographic? Because again, what ad you serve up to me should be different than what my wife gets.
Yes.
I look at my wife's Facebook feed and it looks nothing like mine. I love my wife to death, but her feed looks nothing like mine. My Amazon feed looks nothing like hers. And this is where I see AI allowing us the opportunity to get hyper specific about who it that you're talking to and doing one-to-one marketing. Retailers have been doing it for years because they know who you are, especially in e-commerce. And unfortunately, restaurants have really struggled. But I see AI as an accelerator to this that we never have had before. So I'd love for you to talk through a little bit of that. And are you guys on that journey, or are you guys already even there that says Jeremy is going to get an ad served up to him for lunchtime for a sandwich, but at dinner time he's going to get, the ad for the cheese pull at Chili's because it's dinner time and he normally, goes to and reacts to those kind of ads. I'd love to kind of think through that because I don't drink. I talk to CMOs all the time and it's not about drinking and I care about it or I don't care about it. I hate ad spend when they're trying to sell me beer or wine clubs or any of these kind of things knowing that I've never ever drank at a place, why would you continue to waste money on me for something that's never worked? And so, again, it's that old adage years and years ago, 50% of marketing doesn't work, 50% of it works, you just don't know what. Now with data, we're able to get there, but I'd love to get to that hyper localized where I can see Runbin really is going to react to this. He's going to continue to react to these types of ads because he loves Chinese hand-pulled noodles, and I'm going to continue to serve him up those kind of things. Don't give him Indian food because he's never ever reacted to an Indian food ad type of thing. So sorry,
I do
maybe I
love
hit
Indian
home. I
food.
don't know. Maybe you love Indian food, so we're good. But I think you get where I'm going, and I'd love to have our listeners understand a little bit about the power of AI that can get to that point, if not now, very soon in the future.
I think you hit the nail on the head with the analogy to e-commerce. The playbook that e-commerce players have deployed for the past decade or so, right? It's 360 view of your customer. It's hyper localization, hyper personalization. That playbook hasn't transcended to other industries yet. And so
Because you don't know who your consumer is, unfortunately, a lot of times in offline commerce. That's the hard part, is figuring out who that person is. But we're getting so much closer to it. So sorry, I'll let you keep going. But that's getting to that place where they know who you are, almost like Cheers, the sitcom from the 80s. When you walk in, they know your beer is sitting there waiting for you when you get there, and doing it in a way that you're not breaking laws and or getting into people's privacy and all of that is the part that everybody has to.
yeah, and on top of that, I think the restaurant industry is typically forgotten because agencies don't typically make a ton of money in it. Like when you think about e-commerce brand, they can dump a bunch of marketing dollars into it because customer acquisition cost is just a thing for them. So to your point, what we're
And their
effectively
margins are a lot better a lot of times than offline commerce. I mean, margins again, your parents retired from Chinese restaurants. If they made double digits margins, they were in a good spot. Whereas, some of these retailers, you're like, what? You're working off a 65% margin? How does that even function? No wonder you got a 40% off sale. You're still making 25 points. So sorry, I'll let you go. But I think that's the other problem is you can't spend a lot to acquire a customer because your margins aren't there to be able to spend too much to go get them.
yeah. And so the work that we are effectively undertaking here is to take that playbook, what worked for e-commerce players, and transcend, sort of take it and translate it into the restaurant industry, right? And so there's a level of sophistication for the marketing technology that we can deploy to make it such that one, the ad campaigns are hyper personalized. So yes, what you end up seeing will be very different from what your wife ends up seeing. The other reason behind this is because the creatives, because we're collecting hundreds of pieces of assets, we can A/B test so many different combinations and permutations, right?
Without having to do a whole bunch of work and having do a ton of campaigns to go figure it out and having photo shoots of the burger with steam coming off it from three different angles to A, B, and C test it. So sorry, I let you keep going, but I think the traditional method to do that ad is to go take a photo shoot and spend tens of thousands of dollars,
Right.
hype it all up with all of the lighting and all of that, and then still take the picture, and then you still don't know if it's going to work. Whereas you guys can throw that out, see what happens. You didn't generate it. You didn't spend a whole lot of time to acquire that asset. You understand if it's any good. You put it out there. If it performs, great. If it doesn't perform, drop it and get the next one in there.
Yeah, and I would say a lot of the fine dining concepts that we've interviewed, we do a lot of customer interviews just to get a sense of like where the market's going. They are still indexed on very polished studio quality photos, right? And nothing wrong with that. But what we're seeing in real time is the market's moving towards raw, authentic. I mean, these car shots, these car
Uh-huh.
videos, right? You're just unboxing a to-go sort of order inside your car. They're everywhere. And the reason they're so attractive for prospective customers is because they're real.
Mm-hmm.
shows a day in life. That's how you are. You just got off from your shift and you open up this thing. It's great. It looks great. It tastes great. You can't beat that. And yes, it doesn't look like studio quality, but hey, it works.
Yeah, it's funny because I was doing a presentation for a brand that I'd never been to, and I went on TikTok and did a research, and I watched a half a dozen people eat their food, and what were the things they were saying that were good about it, and what were the things that they were saying that were bad about it before I went to my appointment. And people laugh at me, and I'm like, but now I know inside the minds of the consumers, what are they experiencing when they're going to this brand? Because I had no idea. I'd never been. I'm flying in to go do this presentation. And in my research, you can only do so much research online for the brand and what are the stories that the blogs have written and all of that. But now let me go to TikTok and YouTube and go get videos of people doing shorts of tasting the chicken tenders with all the different sauces or whatever else. But I'd love to talk a little bit about food quality. So one of the biggest challenges that people continue to struggle with, and I guess have you guys even considered this, is you're getting user-generated content. You've got tie-ins potentially to even review data, or you can get tie-ins to review data. You know what the standard is. It's supposed to look like this. And then you guys are getting photographs that you guys are now evaluating with AI. Have you guys looked at it from the opposite side that said, this franchise Jimmy John's is not wrapping this sandwich properly and it's hindering our brand? Have you guys even gone there? Has that come through the data?
It's in
That's because
R&D
that's
right now.
almost impossible to get. That outside of the user generated content, that is almost impossible to get. And they pay tens of thousands of dollars for secret shoppers to do it. And you got a 1 in 1,000 shot to get the right one or the wrong one. So I'd love to understand, are you guys able to evaluate it and say, did it meet the standard? Was it to spec? Was it to size using that same data? Because I'm sure a CEO or a chef's like, that's not my food. That's not the food that I tried to create when they're watching these pictures or these videos. I'd love to understand if you guys are even considering that.
It's almost as though you might have overheard our team meetings.
That's so funny. Literally, I read your guys' story and I'm like, I'm so enthralled with being able to use this stuff to be able to do that. But I really think it's a huge piece that if you guys hadn't thought about it, but it sounds like you guys are already on that path. So that's great.
We're working through it. It's not ready yet. And so for the metadata that's created for the assets that we collect, right? We just haven't found the right use case for it. What you're suggesting here is one of those potential use cases. And how this came about is one of our FSR clients, they're a multi-location chain in California, Soup Dumplings. The owner personally reviews that folder containing like hundreds of photos and videos.
Mm-hmm.
And it came up one day. He's like, "Oh my gosh, like I can't believe like the dumplings are put this way or it's broken inside one of these trays." Because it's pretty apparent that nobody's really touched it, but it just like the whole thing about a soup dumpling is it's not supposed to.
Yeah, it has to. The soup has to be inside. My 10-year-old screwed up. We went for Xiaolong Bao the other day, and she split it while she was trying to put it into her cup. So it's not as good. It doesn't taste the same. So
And so that sort of inspired our thoughts around, okay, well, can we actually make really good use of the data? And what would that mean for various functions within that brand, right? Whether it's operations or it's, your marketing team or even the owners. And so it's something in the works and, hopefully it will come up soon.
I love it. Yeah, there was a former guest, Brock Weeks, who runs a camera company that's using AI to make sure that they're doing bathroom checks and then make sure that they're greeting the customers. So they're using computer vision and cameras to be able to do that. So I love that you guys are kind of thinking the same way because at the end of the day, you're not looking to get somebody in trouble. You're looking to fix the guest experience
Yes.
proactively to help make sure that it's getting done well.
Mhm.
We're starting to wrap up. Talk to me a little bit about where you guys are going. You guys have such a green space out in front of you. I love what you guys are doing. I love the user generated content. I love the fact that you guys are consolidating that, getting the best of the best, bubbling it up to the top, and allowing people to use it to be able to drive the guest experience and the marketing team's experience in such a different way than what most people are just, I'll just come in and film some stuff and then I'll go cut it up and then I'll give it to you. Like you guys are doing it in you guys are using technology to make people's lives better, but where is it going? And what do you see the future as you guys look out 1, 2, 3 years from now? Where do you see it going?
Great question. We believe that every person on this planet in the future will become some kind of an influencer. The reason influencers are really just a category in themselves right now is because it actually takes a lot of work to be one.
That does.
And so even if you're a micro influencer, you're really putting in the hours. But with the advancements in technology and through our platform, we believe that friction can be eliminated almost entirely. And so in the end, it's the authenticity of your identity of the brands that you are promoting that makes the world of difference. Content like photos, videos, whatever it may be, is just a form of communicating that. But the real value is in you.
Yes.
Because my friends will certainly listen to me if I were to say, hey, there's an all-you-can-eat sushi buffet that's around here that's like really, really good. They'll go in a heartbeat.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that that's that idea of taking what your consumers are experiencing and repurposing it to help not just you, but the rest of the world to experience it is amazing. Well, I love that you guys are doing that. How do people get in touch? How do people learn more? What kind of customers are you guys looking for? Where are you guys at on your journey? Are you ready to go? Do you want 50 store chains, 20 store chains? Talk to me a little bit about who is the ICP you guys are looking for today, and how would they engage, and what would that engagement look like?
Yeah, folks can reach out to us on our website, getsocialscale.com, or email me directly. So that's Runbin, RUNBIN, at scalesocialai.com. And our ICPs are franchise brands, mid-market, typically anywhere between 25 to 500 locations, and or if you're a multi-location brand in F&B. Those are great customers mainly because there's a level of sophistication from a marketing perspective built in already, and that there's that disconnect that we're hoping to address. However, in 2020, we will be rolling out an SMB solution. And so think Canva for short form video automation.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Yeah, and to your point, the acceleration of the tools are going to continue to make it accessible for everybody. I've been doing podcasts now for going on 7 years, and the way I had to do it with Skype 7 years ago, and like it's insane to think about what I'm able to do today. And you and I've got HD video back and forth, and you're 1,500 miles away from me, and just a fantastic conversation. And the quality of it and the speed by which I can produce content nowadays, I think it's only going to accelerate. And I agree with you, getting real life examples of what it is that people are doing in the space is going to change the game for people that are adopting it. And so thank you guys for creating that. Thank you for coming on. I know that took us a couple of months to get back and forth, between my travels and your travels. So it's so great to get you on the show and to have you share what you guys are doing. So to our listeners, guys, please go check them out. Scalesocial.ai. Go check them out online. Runbin is very, very responsive. He and I go back and forth on email a bunch, so I'm excited to see them out into the space. And if you haven't already subscribed to the show, please do so, and make it a great day.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Awesome. Thank you.
Whoa,
it says failed to stop recording. What happened? What did I do? Okay, there we go. Yeah, I don't know why this thing's being weird today. So
it
not too bad.
Fireworks.
Yeah, I know. We got the fireworks and we got the thumbs up. It's so weird. Easy enough conversation. Not too bad. Sorry, I kept asking. Like I went off script, but I love those authentic conversations. You said it was good, and I'm like, you know what? He's running with it, so I'm in a good spot.
Yes.
So awesome. Well, we'll get it produced. We'll get it off to you. Go enjoy your beer this evening.
Yeah.
All right.
Same to you.
All right. Thanks, man. Have a great night. Talk to you soon.